In today's show, we're going to do a scheduled flow to find our past due approvals. So in a previous video, we built an approval app, not using Flow to do the approvals, but handling it all inside of Power Apps. And so now what we want to do is create a scheduled flow that runs once a day and checks to see, do we have any approvals that have been outstanding for too long? So it's going to require us to build an oData query, and we're just going to talk about some of the mechanics and introduce you guys to a bunch of little things that we haven't covered before. Should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. In today's show, we're going to talk about scheduled flows, right? That's kind of what sent me down this path. But what I realized was that in our approval app that we built back in June, I think, when we built that, we kind of set up the approval process. So in Power Apps, it generated those deep links, sent people emails so they could then do the approvals. But what I figured out was that, we've never went back and said, hey, how do I remind people if they don't do their approvals, right? You can come into the app, they can see those, but instead what I want to do is have a reminder that goes out, hey, if you have any approvals that are more than 7 days old, then we want to be able to notify you and, nudge you along a little bit. And these types of scheduled flows are very handy because a lot of times in Flow, you find yourself saying, hey, I want to have something happen every day at 8 a.m. or have something happen every hour or on the first of every month, right? These different types of scenarios come up all the time. So what I want to do is introduce you to that trigger. And then once you get to see how easy that trigger is to use, then we're going to go in, we're going to build a much more complex flow, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to use an oData query to only get the approvals back that we need to. And then we're going to send off those deep links. So a lot of little things here, but really the idea was to kind of expose you guys to that. So let's switch over to my desktop and let's take a look. Over here on my desktop, what we're going to do is we're just run through the app real quick and then show you the pieces we're going to build, right? You always enjoy seeing what we're going to build, and then we'll build it. So over here, this is the expense approval app. We've built this over a course about 3 or 4 videos. If you remind me, I will send a link somewhere up here on screen, here, somewhere. And so what we do is we go in and create a new expense approval, right? We're like, hey, Flow demo. When's the date? What type of expense is it? Well, clearly this is wasteful. No, it's not. And then what we were doing in the last video is we automatically figured out who the approver was based on the amount of the expense. And so like if I say, hey, I want to buy a new Tesla Plaid, I think it's like $134,000. If we say save, you're going to see that the approver changes to me. Haha, so I can approve my own car. I like this. So we also have the ability to attach files. We're not going to worry about that because none of that's the point. But what's going to happen is we say save. And so then now it creates the master items, it creates the children items, all in our different data sources. And because I was the approver, if we say my approvals, you can see I've got 2 different approvals here. The screen doesn't look very pretty, as you can see. That's okay. Mechanically, we went through all the process of it so you could see what it would go into and approve and reject. We also, when we said save back over here, it sent off an email with a deep link, which is a link to this specific item. So if someone gets that email, which would be the approver, then when they click on the link in the email, here, let me open the email one sec. So right here, you can see there's the link. And if I click on the link, what'll happen is it'll open up the Power App. Oh, it'll ask me for permissions. Then it'll open up the Power App right into the actual item that just got created so we can approve it. Okay, so that's called a deep link. All that's covered in the other video. And remember, if you sign up at training.powerapps911.com, the curated library, you can even download that fully working solution. You don't have to build any of it. So what we want to do today, though, is we send out these approval emails. But one of the things that Power Apps can't do is it can't just automatically remind people, hey, you have old things to do. If the user comes in here to the app and says my approvals, they can see them. But, if I think back to my last corporate job, my boss, he hated approving expense reports. I don't know why. I don't know if he got bonuses based on how long he strung out my money. I don't know what it was. He always had an excuse. So what I would do today is I'm going to build a flow that reminds him anytime he has one that's more than 7 days old. And so the way we do that is we go over here to Flow, and we're going to use the recurrence trigger. And so the recurrence trigger, in our case, we're going to build it to run once a day. So just every day. I can even say the time. So I believe this is like at 10 a.m., right? Because I know my boss ever came in very early, so I want to remind him after he's in the office. But so every morning at 10 a.m., we're going to trigger this flow. In the flow, we're going to get all the things that are more than a week old. And so what we're going to do is I did this compose step. We're going to do it that way so that way we can see kind of how I do it. We don't have to break it out this much, but we will. And then I'm going to get all the items from SharePoint, and we're going to use an oData query to do that. And so we're going to say where all the approvals sent is less than the output of this, which was today minus 7 days. Then we're going to just use this compose step here to do the length, so that way we know how many records we got back. And for every record we get back, we're going to send an email off with that. And so then that way, when they do this, you will get an email that has the thing, says, hey, you need to update the status. And so I've used this for customers quite a bit in the past. And, sometimes it's like, all right, we just remind them every day, from 7 days on. Sometimes we'll be like, hey, remind them at 7 days, 10 days, 11 days, 13 days, and then every day. Only remind them if their title is not CEO, because we can't nag the CEO. So we have these different types of controls, but we're going to not get into that level of granularity, but you can if you need to. So how do we build this thing? Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to go here, I'm going to say create, and we're going to say I want to create a scheduled flow. And so we're going to click on scheduled flow. Now, keep in mind that this is showing you how to do it from Flow Studio or Power Automate Studio, whatever we call this thing. But if you were over in Project Oakdale, what would that look like? Well, here, let's switch over and look at what that would look like real quick to get us both to this same screen. So no matter how you need to do it, you can see it. One sec. Okay, so over in Project Oakdale in Teams, right, I went to the Power Apps tab because you're going to build your flows from there. You'd click on Build. You would then figure out which environment you needed to tie this to. So where was your approvals coming from? And so then what we're going to do is we're going to find that environment. So I'll just do it my playing one. I'll say See All. And so then now that you're here, you would do New, Flow, and Scheduled Flow, and you get the same editor, right? So whichever way you're coming in, either one of us, we can do the same exact thing. So I'm going to make that very clear. But we'll get rid of that one. We'll do it over here. And so we'll give this a flow. We'll call this the nag flow. All right. And so then you can see they give us a cute little wizard. So when do you want to run this flow? Well, I'm going to start it tomorrow morning. So that'll be the 5th. And I'm going to start it, and I did the last one at 10 a.m. So we'll make this one at 9 a.m. I don't know, just so it's different. And so then now it's like, hey, how often do you want me to repeat? And once a minute, once an hour, once a day, once a week, once a month, once a second. Whew. So you can do these. I'm going to just do once a day. Now keep in mind that, you do have a flow run limit. So if you do like have this email go out once every 5 minutes, which would make no sense in this scenario, but you could, you're going to use a lot more flow capacity. And Microsoft's getting better at, stopping you. So if you run and use too much capacity, yelling at you. So just so you guys are kind of a heads up, like one of my customers ran out of capacity from writing to me flows. So we had to buy a license. No big deal. All right. And that's what it's meant to do. But things like having a reoccurrence flow run every 5 minutes, it's going to run you out of capacity a lot faster than having this flow run once a day. So we'll say create. And so there you go. It's built on our flow. We can expand it if we wanted. Runs every day, and we can do edit. And so they do a pretty good job here, but you can come in here and you can mess with this thing all you want. So if you really want to get down and tune it to those different values at specific times, I've never found like an actual business case for that, but I'm sure you guys have got them. So I wanted to make sure you at least knew they were there. Because remember, we just always click on show advanced options, see what happens. All right. So then now I need to get all of the items that match the criteria. So the first thing I do is I'm going to say new step. And so in this case, SharePoint is my data source. But remember, nothing about this is SharePoint specific necessarily. What it's really about is just finding a way to get your data set. So I'm going to drill into my SharePoint list. So it's on Power Apps Videos. And my list name is called Expense Master. There it is. And so then now there's limited entries, nested items. I don't need any of that. But what I am going to need is I'm going to need to do an oData filter. Okay, because one of the most common mistakes I see thousands of these flows built. And one of the most common things I see happen here is that people say, hey, I'm just going to go get all the items and then I'll write an easy flow condition to check for those. Well, what happens, in the case of this list, I think it has 88, 89, 100-ish items in it. So I would have to go fetch that entire payload, right? 100 items, so that's a bigger payload. And then I would come over here and I'd do a loop and loop through all 100 items. And so I might make my flow take 10 minutes just to find the ones that match my thing. In the case of like, SharePoint or CDS or SQL, right? There's different query ways that we can send over the query we want to do and only get the records back we want. So that way we're processing less in Flow, right? Making the flow as lightweight as possible, which means as fast as possible. So to that end, in the SharePoint world, I'm going to have to use what's called an oData query. And so oData, if you haven't seen it before, this is this terrible language, right? I've been doing it for 15 years and I still hate it. And I still have to look up how to do it all the time. But the idea here is that you can query for a column. And so if I look over here, maybe one of the columns I want is, expense status of submitted. Ugh, so hard to say. And I think in the other video I messed up saying submitted too. Apparently I don't like that word. So what you can do though, is you can be like, all right, I want expense status like this. Now you're not going to do an equal symbol. Don't do that. You have to use the word. So, or the, letters, I don't know, EQ for equals. So you'd say expense status equals, and then it goes in a single quote. And in our case, we want to do submitted. Now, and then close my single quote. Keep in mind that these things are very case sensitive and they are very obnoxious. They like what they like and they don't like anything else. So you're going to have to take your time with this if you haven't done oData queries before. But I think that one will look good. Now, the other thing I would warn you is I'm going to go ahead and say get items. I'm going to just test this thing as simply as possible. I'm not going to try and write the whole flow. I never do. I am going to add that compose step down here though. And so the idea of this compose step is it's going to give us, we're going to use the expression called length, which counts the number of items that get returned. So length like that. And then once it gives me the little thing, we'll click on dynamic content and say value, and then say okay. And so that's going to just count the number of records we get back, kind of count rows over in Power Apps. But now we know how many we get back, so that looks good. We'll say save. And now it's saved, we'll do a test, and then we'll perform the trigger action ourselves. So we'll say test again, and then run the flow. Done. And so now it ran very quickly, right? Which is what you're after. You want this to run fast. And so we got items, it looks like that was happy, and we do compose, and we got 10. And if I go over here to this thing and say, hey, show me all of the things, and maybe I'll just say, filter by. And submitted. Apply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woohoo! So we know we got the right data set back. This is super important, right? Take your time, because especially if you're new to oData queries, you're going to want to make sure that you have a little bit of practice there. And so now that we've done that, now we say, well, okay, well, I want expense status equals submitted because that's what we do when they are not sent. And so then I cheated and I added a column earlier called approval sent. So when did I send this approval? And I've only updated it here in one field. We'll quick edit the other record we just made. So I need to go change my Power App to update this field automatically, but we'll just change this one to this one was sent on 10/4. Oh, I guess I just click on it, huh? That'd be a lot easier. There you go. Quick edit mode, exit. Okay, so we got 2 items with an approval sent. So if we ran this tomorrow, Monday morning, well, this one will not be too old, so I'm not too worried about that one, but I want this one to trigger. So back to my flow. What we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, I want expense status equals submitted. And now, once again, this is a common mistake I make because in Power Apps, and is spelled with a capital A. In oData, it is lowercase a. So expense status submitted and so then now it's like, all right, and what? So I look at the column name, approval sent. So approval sent. Remember getting all the capitalization and all that. And then we're going to do equal sign, or not equal sign, equal the word. And so then I know that the format it wants is 22009, or let's say just do, let's do 10. So 1001. Now, so that would only get the ones that were equal to 010. So what I really want is if they're less than, so I would just do LT. So anything less than 1001. All right, I don't know if that's going to work. I probably got a typo, but whatever. We'll say test. We'll just use our last run, save and test. Hey, it didn't fail. That's kind of exciting. We'll go to compose. It got 1. Yeah! Now, if you want to make sure you got the right one, you could click get items and then click to download. I'm not going to do that because I know it got the right item. But very cool, right? We wrote a complex oData query. Now, you're saying, well, Shane, that's hard-coded to October 1st. That's fair. So now we need to make this portion dynamic. So to do that, I'm going to step back up here, and this is where I'm going to add a compose. Now, you do not have to do this once you understand how it works, but this makes my life easier troubleshooting. And so I actually found a new expression today I had never used. We'll click over expressions. I don't know if it's brand new or if it's just on the first time I found it. But under the date and time functions, we said see more, and there is something called get past time. Because what I was trying to do was subtract from time, but that was a pain in the butt. Get past time just says returns a timestamp that is the current time minus the specified interval. Oh. So what if I said get past time? And so in my case, I just wanted to do 1, week. And then I also know that I need it back in a very specific format. And so I'm going to put that format right here. And we're going to go 2020. Oh, that's not what you want. I want YYY for year, dash. And then weirdly enough, it is capital M, right? Lowercase m's are minutes. Uppercase m's are month. And then lowercase d. And so we'll do that. Now, I'm not even going to bother changing this, right? Because I don't want to mess with that yet. It's good. So we're just going to say test again. And so look, it's done already. So let's go ahead and expand it. And look at that. It returns 9/27, which, if you get out a calendar, is 7 days ago from 10/4, right? It's Sunday afternoon. My Bengals just won, I think. I don't know. I didn't watch football. I watched my kids play sports. Whatever. Anyway, I'm making this on Sunday night for you guys. I like you a lot. I know. But so you can see, that gets us exactly what we want. So now what I'm going to do is edit again. Go down here to my get items. And so right here, we're going to replace this. And this is why, this is literally the way I built it this afternoon, trying to figure out how to show you guys this, right? I do it with hard-coded data first to make sure I understand mechanically that it does what I want. And now that I know, and I know this spits out the right thing, we're just going to replace all that. Make sure you see the little single quote is still right there, and that single quote is there. Sometimes those get deleted, and if they do, it won't work. But that looks good. So then now we can say test again. And in theory, we should get all the records that match, which in our case would just be the 1, hopefully. So fingers crossed, it is successful. Compose says we got 1 record. What? Look at that, folks. I did that without screwing up, without a single typo. I'm kind of shocked. I made a lot of typos when I was practicing earlier. But yeah. So expense status equals submitted and approval less than the date that just got calculated. Now, if you wanted, there's nothing stopping you from coming up here and just grabbing this, Control C. And so then you could come down here and you could say expression. You could paste this in. So now that expression's there, I make sure that my single quotes are there. We're going to be brave. We're going to be real brave. We're going to delete this because this is what you would do in a production scenario. And so now we can say test. And one more time, we will send this off to the tester. Okay, and it looks like it was happy, and we got 1. Ho, ho, ho. Remember, you can also go here to get items, and if you say show more, you can see that that is the formula that we wanted it to be. Sorry, I apologize for the happy dance. Okay, so we've got a lot of the hard stuff done. Now the simple thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to here, I want to email these people. So if I go here and I say new step, I'm going to type in Outlook, and then we'll just do like send. Look at that, send an email V2. Who do I want to send it to? Well, I don't want to send it to a hard-coded person. I want to send it to the approver that needs to do his or her job. So add dynamic content. Scroll over here so you can see it because Flow's annoying. And so there's approver email right there. So that's the email column over here, right? Chewy, Shane, Daniel, all of us. Oh, not there, over here. So approver email, all right. Now when I did that, notice that it automatically created this apply to each loop, right? And this is because Flow is smart. Flow said, hey, when you did get items, that's going to give us back a table of data. It might only give us 1 record back, but if it only gives us 1, it's still a table. So I have to loop through that table because some days you might have 1 approver this past due, some days you might have 27. This is going to be resilient to that process. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to send an email to that person. And so for the subject, we might say, you forgot to do your approval. And so we could come over here and grab some dynamic data. You guys have seen that before. We're not too worried about it, but that is possible. And so then now the last little tricky part. So in the body, I don't want to just send them a nudge. I want to send them a nudge with a link to get them back in there. And so to do that, we're going to go back to our Power App for a second, because over here in our Power App in the last video, we figured out how to create this deep link, right? This is the link back to the app that we want to send them to. And then we put in that query string parameter, right? Called mid equals, and then the ID of the record that we want to attach them to. So I'm just going to copy up through the URL. So Control C, and we'll go over here to our flow, and we're going to say, here is the link. Oh, not this. Here is the, I'm going to click on the little linky symbol. Go away, dynamic content. Oh, well, dynamic content's going to be a pain in the butt. And so for the link title, I'm just going to type in link because I'm lazy. And link target, we're going to paste in the whole thing. And we're going to say add. Now, if we hover, oh, it's not going to let us. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the little show code here. And so that shows us the entire code. Now remember, this link is not the same for you. This link is for my specific app. Yours will be different. But in the video, we talked about making MID for, I don't remember why I called it MID, quite frankly, but whatever I called it MID for equals, and we need to add right here the ID of the record that we want to do. And so what we need to do now is we need dynamic content. We're going to type in ID. That's going to get the SharePoint list item ID the same way it got the approver email. But so then now this should be a, here is the word link, but it should be a link to this app with a parameter of MID equals that. All right, that seems pretty cool. So let's just test it. So hit save. Ugh, when that was saving, Chewy was barking. Hopefully I can make it through the video. If it did, I apologize, but hopefully I edited it out. Anyway, so then now that this is saved, now we can do our test. And we'll test again. And so now the flow should be off and running. But what should happen this time is it should get the item we expect. We should just get that one. And it should send an email, all right, to me because I was the approver, right? And it's not, it's because I am literally the approver. If Chewy had been the approver, he would have gotten it. But that looks good. So now I'm going to open my email. One sec. And look, you forgot to do your approval. Cool. And so if we hover, here's the link. Oh, I see that MID equals 102. So let's click it. We click the link. And so remember, that's called a deep link in Power Apps terms. We say allow. And so then this is going to drop us into the Power App. Boom! It is ready to do the item that is past due. So then now I can approve, reject, I can add my comments, and right, all the Power Apps functionality takes over. But Flow, this fun little flow that we just wrote, does all the work for us. So every day we're going to check. We're only going to get the items that are needed to be notified, right? Do not get all the items or your flow will be slow and you will be angry. Just get the ones that need to be checked. And so like with SQL, we can just do a SQL query. I believe you use oData filters with the Common Data Service or Oakdale. So, do the right thing to get just the items you want. This compose step, completely unnecessary, but helped me troubleshoot, so I kept it. And then down here, we're just going to loop through, and for every record we get back, then we're going to send an email. So there you go, guys, girls, ladies, gents, kids of all ages. You have got a flow. So hopefully that helps you, right? That gets you thinking about how to do not only this scenario, but all the different scenarios you have. As a reminder, you can download the app that I just showed you. You can download this flow that we just built. All of that is all available if you sign up at training.powerapps911.com for the curated library. You get a personal email from me, right? Everybody's going to email here in an hour with like, hey, here's the link to the new video, why I made it, and some details. They can download it, they can watch it ad-free, all that fun stuff. If you have any thoughts, comments, leave me notes below. I'm actually all caught up on comments. Yay! Which is unusual. I'm usually about a week behind, but I do reply to all of them just about. I miss some here and there. If you want to work together, you hit me up at PowerApps911, blah, 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 blah. All right. It has been a long day of kids sporting events and professional sporting events and dogs barking, who's now laying there quietly, of course. So with that, I'm just going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at PowerApps911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.